Hello to you. My name is Tash Mitch. I'm a life and business mentor, an energy alchemist, and a healer. And today I've got somebody who I absolutely adore her work and I adore where she comes from, Alexandra Wenman. Alexandra Wenman, I came to Alex through her work. Basically, she was doing work where she was merging the chakras with sacred geometry, and that was the first thing that drew me in, because it's like at that point I was on that same trajectory and I hadn't seen anybody doing it, so it's like, oh my god. And then the angelic work that she was doing as well really drew me in, because there's for me, the archetype and the energy and the frequency of particular angels are really there to help us in quite specific and quite expansive ways. And I was actually seeing her using that work in what she was doing. And now she's doing the Alexandra Wenman show, just bringing out some really high potent, high frequency wisdom into the media space, which is absolutely beautiful. So Alexandra, it's an honor. Welcome.
Thank you, Tash. Thank you so much for having me again on your soulful conversations. I love these conversations. I just love, I know you and I always have amazing chats, and I'm already feeling this kind of bubbly, excited energy, kind of just the coming together of the two of us. So thank you, honey. We've got so many synchronicities, don't we? It's ridiculous.
Absolutely. So in this particular conversation, it's really talking into the wise woman. I'm having an immersion on the 1st of January that is basically a deep dive into womanhood, a deep dive into what it means to be a high frequency expression of womanhood. And for me, the goddess is definitely what that is. So what does it mean to really embrace the goddess? And I feel that so much in the work that you're doing, and I know for you there's things that you're going to bringing out next year that's coinciding with that as well. So it feels like quite synergistic in that way. But intuition is such a big part of that process, and that piece of really grounding ourselves in who we are. So much demands our intuitive center be open. Can you talk into that a bit?
Hugely. I mean, it's sort of everything that to me, my femininity revolves around. It's the inner path. It is that, to me, feminine is. It's not just embodied by women; it's embodied by men as well. But we've learnt to suppress that side of us, that intuitive side, and it's. When I look at feminine, it's almost like the mystery. It's what's hidden. It's what's below the surface. It's what we're not really looking at, and the gifts that we're not really utilizing. And we're only using a small portion of what we're capable of. And one of the things that I always was sort of predisposed to as a child was really going into that intuitive space before I sort of learnt to shut it down, and before it sort of became this, oh no, that's just your imagination. I lived my life in that space. I used to write poetry prolifically as a child, and I never knew where it came from. It was more kind of, I would just feel into that expression and let it flow. And as I kind of grew up, being a girl, being raised a Catholic, going to Catholic school, all of those things, that feminine side, it was like it was fine to be the softer feminine, but the kind of the wild woman side, the part of us that is sheer expression, the part of us that wants to just come out and play and be warts and all, whatever you need to be, that gets shut down. That gets shut down in a lot of women and a lot of men. Like, men aren't really allowed to show their emotions or to show their softer side or to use their intuition in the way our society has been. But all of this is waking up. And one of the things I found with myself was that I learnt very early on to be a real Pollyanna kind of character, to be a people pleaser, to be a soft girly girl. Like, I was always this girly girl. Everything's great, everything's fine. Just ignore or suppress or hide my true expression and my true emotions. And it was fine to be, vanilla, but it was not fine to be like chocolate with raspberry. I don't even know why I'm using food analogies, but this is all coming out. And not to be wild, not to be angry. One of the things that I find that we've suppressed is our anger. And over the last few years, I've been through quite a few major personal challenges, which I'm not going to give too many details on. It was a very personal time, but it served in kind of breaking open, and the wise woman that was hiding underneath that Pollyanna exterior started to come out, and all of the anger that I had suppressed wanted to show itself. And I started writing poetry again in the last 2 years, and I share a lot of my poetry on my Instagram. And what I find is when I write, I don't care about pentameter or any of its sheer expression. It's like a tap's turned on, and usually it's triggered by an emotion or something, and I write as a healing mechanism. And it is very much coming from that higher part of me, that wise woman within, the part of me that is connected to the energy of Divine Mother, that infinite feminine energy. And it's a raw power that kind of comes through. And I've also experienced recently, in the last sort of 6 months to a year, I've been singing, I've been channeling through sound, and it's just extraordinary. It's so healing. I'll get in the bath and I'll just start toning, and these songs are coming out that are very simplified wording, but the most beautiful, haunting almost sounds and tones. And I'm wanting to do something with that, or maybe perhaps lead some group sessions where I get people to open the voice and share and express in that way through writing and sound and all of that. I'm about to start. I'm just like going on and on and on because this topic is so like.
I love it.
Like, blah, 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 blah. But I went on a trip to France in July 2017, July of this year. And we went to follow the Magdalene we're called by Magdalene. It was a group of 12 or 13 of us who went. And while we were there, I channeled Mary Magdalene. And since then, it's like I've opened right up to this goddess energy. And I believe that between 2012 and 2017 was this real period of, it was like a gateway, it was like a doorway. The Mayan calendar sort of ended 2012, but that wasn't the full completion of it. I feel like we're coming full circuit through, it's like we've all walked through one gateway in 2012, down through our proverbial underworld, and we're sort of coming up out of it. I know this is for me personally and a lot of people I speak to. 2017 feels like the completion of a process, something to do with this 5-year process of breaking down, breaking away the old, lots of things collapsing around us. And many people listening to this might find that where they used to be able to manifest, some of our manifesting has been put on hold. It's like, where you've been in that real, why is nothing working? Why is nothing moving forward? It's because we've been forced to look within. We're having to turn within and find that inner truth and find that inner wise woman, both women and for men. Where do your emotions lie? We can't deny those deeper emotions anymore. We're having to look at them, embrace them, love them, and learn from them, and learn how to express them. That's the really important thing. Express them in a healthy way. And we're learning a lot more about ourselves, or our natural gifts of intuition are opening up. And the first part of intuition is those emotions. We are sentient beings first and foremost. So the more that we can start to honor our emotions and listen to them as tools and as our teachers, the more we are embracing that inner wise woman in each of us. We're embracing that inner feminine and learning how to navigate life from that space. And I think that is really important for everybody, not to suppress, not to shut down, even if you feel it's an ugly side of you, an ugly truth, or as women especially, we've been taught not to get angry. It's been okay for men to shout and to be loud and to be bolshy and to be impolite. But as women, we're so polite. It's okay, no worries. Oh, sorry. Not anymore.
Yeah.
And I turned 40 this year, and at my 40th birthday party, I wasn't going to do a speech, and then I got up, and this power came up through me, and I felt the whole week of my 40th birthday, I felt really angry, but it didn't feel like an unhealthy anger. I I felt like for the first time in my life, I was gripping my anger by the horns and letting it come out and letting it express itself. And it felt like true power. The small me, the little Pollyanna me, the one that was always, it's okay. It was like, I am not going to be small anymore. I have work to do.
Yes.
I'm here for a big reason. So if anyone is going to try and push me down or put me back in that box or suppress me or deny me, watch out. And, obviously I can still be kind and loving and light and fluffy and all of that when it's right. But that wild side, we've got the pure feminine, the soft feminine, the nurturing feminine, but this wild feminine, this strong feminine, this raw power feminine, it's like the mother bear that, if you try and touch her cub would rip your head off. That is power. Yes. And that is, it's we need to find a way to embrace both, because it's the light and the dark. It is that duality that's coming through, and they're all a gift. So, yeah, I'm sorry, I can waffle on about this topic.
No, I love it. Because one of the things that you were saying, about our society not really embracing the intuitive elements and also the feeling body as well, the whole strength always tends to look like, in a typical sense, as not letting your emotions get involved. It's very masculine, very in that masculine sense, that's what strength tends to look like. But when we're tapping into our intuition, we're really tapping into, as you say, the feeling body, the sensual body as a tuning fork for what we're communicating with in the universe around us. And I feel it's so important to embrace that. But also I feel as women, and it's one of the things that came forward when I first started coming into, bringing this work out, was we need to hold a level of strength and a level of definition of what it is for us to be a woman, for our men to entrain, for our men to also be able to embrace the feminine within themselves, for them to have a really clear understanding, a really clear sensation or feeling of what a strong woman, an empowered woman looks like, and not just a superficial version of it. One that is soulful and deep and expressive and planted,
I find that a lot of men, and certainly in my experience, I know that I have the most amazing husband, but sometimes I'm seeing it in my own relationship, and I'm seeing it in clients where, in these last 5 years or these last few years, women are stretching into their emotions more and exploring those and expressing those and not being afraid to come out and roar. And a lot of men are feeling a bit unsettled by this. Yeah. But it's part of this shake-up. I think I've definitely seen it in my own husband, where I think he's a little bit afraid of the depth of my emotions sometimes, and that he doesn't know how to handle it. But I think that a lot of men are frightened to go there in themselves. So there's this fear of, oh God, she's being emotional again, and they don't want, because it's going to trigger them, and it's going to force them to look at their emotions. Yeah. And what we're now seeing is a lot of men going through these collapses of, the rug coming out from under us all. And when it happens for a man, it's like this breakdown. I recently had a friend whose partner was attacked by a group of guys, and he was kicked in the head. And he was someone who was very, not very emotional. And he was crying for days. It was like a massive shift, a massive awakening. All the emotion was just coming out and coming out and coming out of him constantly. Just couldn't turn off the tears. And to me, that's actually, it's horrible what happened, but it's actually a really beautiful thing that he was able to let himself go into that space where he let the tears come out and let himself be held by the people around him, by her parents and the people that stepped in to help let himself be vulnerable, because men are often afraid to be vulnerable, and they feel like they have to be, as you said, this pillar of strength, that is almost this emotionless strength. It's this hold it together, man. Come on, hold it together, man. And sometimes as women, we need men to crumble with us. If we're going through something emotional, the best thing would be for the man to feel it with us, rather than to stand there and go, there, and pat you on the head, or, oh, are you crying? Oh dear, sorry. Like, it would be good for them to acknowledge, I think, that it's okay to have those emotions when you're going through something, and to acknowledge that it affects them too.
I feel like that's part of what we're teaching, though, because I feel like as women, we've actually taken on board that sort of strength means that masculine element. So vulnerability means weakness. And so vulnerability then means that you go down, for some women, it's kind of like you go down a road and you stay down that road, and it becomes kind of like an archetype almost that you play out in a way. But what does strength and vulnerability mean? And I feel like that's what men need to see, and that's what women need to let bubble up from within them. What does it mean to be surrender and still be strong and powerful? What does it mean to be vulnerable and exposed and still be strong and powerful? Do you know what I mean? Because to be vulnerable and exposed and stay vulnerable and exposed without the strength piece is something that I feel like a lot of men fear, because if they go in that place as well, then how do we get out? How do we navigate out of this? Do you know what I mean? If we both decide to go down this whole, like, how do we navigate? How do we find ourselves back to safety? And so to be able to portray that strength in doing that sort of level of release that occurs in doing that. It took me a while actually to understand that releasing tears is the equivalent to breaching a gap in energy. Like, basically that thing that creates a block that sort of like keeps your head away from the lower parts in some ways. Do you know what I mean? And you continuously suppressing that and moving that downwards, so you don't think about it, you don't allow your consciousness to get involved with it, even though your consciousness is involved with it. The tears, the breakdown allows for that to just and then the flow to come in, and it took me a while to understand the necessity of crying and tears in that way. How empowering it could be. Definitely.
I used to, whenever I would get angry, or I would feel angry, I used to go immediately to tears. And it was almost a survival mechanism, because I didn't know how to face my anger, and I didn't know how to express my anger. And it was almost like the tears were a relief of some kind. They were sort of healing me. They were allowing me to express, but without facing the emotion the anger, or without getting really aggressive with it, because I was frightened of being aggressive. And now it's I can honor that if my anger brings tears, it's fine, because it used to make me feel, oh God, I'm angry, but I don't know how to deal with it, so I'm just going to cry. And now it's like, I'm angry, I can be angry. And actually, but I think that you're right. I think the tears sort of helped to stop me suppressing it completely. It was like that release that was needed, and some form of expression. And I think that tears are always really, really healing. I mean, I think more men almost need to be allowed the space to shed those tears, and to know that it is a strength to release those tears. And in a way, allowing a woman to see you vulnerable, allowing a woman to hold you in that, is a real show of strength and courage. Trust somebody to see you in that position, in that state. I mean, it's courageous for anybody to allow themselves to be seen as vulnerable. Absolutely. But I think if a man lets, say, another man see him vulnerable, or a woman to see him vulnerable, that's extraordinary. That's something really, really amazing. And I think more men are realizing that they can come together and support each other in this too.
That's an interesting one as well, because basically I feel like where exactly like you're saying, sometimes with women the expression of anger could then come out in tears. It feels the reverse, like tears comes out in anger for men. That's kind of like the natural expression. As soon as you start to get teary, you get like really angry, and you kind of like you almost bypass that feeling in a way.
Yeah, they shut them off, don't they? The opposite.
Yeah, so it's kind of interesting how it mirrors that way, but definitely, and the intuition, I feel like, demands that we honor that within ourselves, because intuition isn't always pretty. You know, when your intuition is sent, you can feel yourself being drawn down a road that is going to be it's going to be not even kind of uncomfortable. It's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to be, you know, pulling that safety blanket out away from you, but it's necessary. That your intuition plays such a massive part in that. And I feel, as women generally speaking, but as people also generally speaking, we don't like to be, you know, uncomfortable. It's not a scenario that we actually reach for naturally. In fact, everything within us tries to keep that away. And so when our intuition is doing that, the natural thing is to damp it down and to pretend, oh, I didn't see that. I'm not feeling that at all.
Especially like when we talk about, obviously, you and I are obviously very open to our spirituality, and I mean, I don't really term spiritual. It's like, well, we're all spiritual because we're all spirit body, but when you're actively on the inner path, let's call it, or on the awakening path, it can be very, when you're first stepping onto it, and even still, no matter how long I've been doing this work and how many people know that I'm out there and I'm woo-woo, or whatever it is you want to call it, it still can be frightening. And that is part of the feminine energy that's waking up within each of us. We're all awakening to this gifts of almost extrasensory perception, natural healing abilities, channeling gifts, mediumship, clairvoyance, clairsentience, claircognizance. All of these things are switching on as our DNA becomes more and more activated by light. This is more light coming into the planet. And that means that more of the shadow is being revealed, so more of the yucky bits. But it also means that all of these awesome gifts that we didn't know that we had are switching on. So as you stretch into that, one of the things I've found is that it's absolutely awesome, and I love it, and I enjoy it so much. But there's also the navigating, oh God, what are people going to think of me?
Yes.
And, you know, this is, I think, similar to what the men are having with, if I'm emotional, will I be judged? It's like having to navigate going into that inner wise woman. And one of the things I think we're really learning is not to fear judgment.
Yes.
It's just express yourself and allow yourself to be whoever you need to be without that fear of judgment. Because if we all still sit here and judge each other and judge ourselves, which empaths are the worst for, then we're never going to move forward as a collective and as a society, because we're always going to be trying to be the same as everybody else. And the thing is, the simple fact is, we're all different, we're all unique, and we all have our own unique set of gifts. We all express the divine in our own way.
Yes.
So it's this really interesting kind of dance that I feel our whole society is doing at the moment. It's like, oh, do I speak up? And yes, and then you speak up, and then you kind of draw back, and then you express yourself, and then you're like, was that okay? But I feel this is really significant, especially with the topic of this conversation, because our third eye is opening. We're able to see more. We're able to see with our feminine, intuitive side the reality of what is going on here. Now, we are able to see through what we call the veil and see that we are much more, you know, we're not alone in this universe. There are many realms, there are many dimensions, there are many layers available to us. And this is the beginning of this awakening to the truth, that we're part of a much bigger galactic universal community, and there's a lot of help here available to Earth. And these were, you know, light beings. But the message was that we want to be seen, and we're going to show ourselves more and more now, and just to be ready. And it's all done. This was all done through love. They're all through love. And one of the things I'm very aware of is that we're also now able to experience ourselves on many dimensional levels. So we're remembering our past lives, but our past lives are not in the past. It's like it's like a parallel life in a way.
Yes.
It's another aspect of us. It's only in the past from this linear place here.
Yeah.
And it's all about empowerment. The more that we understand that some of our emotions don't actually come from this particular lifetime. Some of these emotions are very deep, and you might not be able to quantify them with what's going on in your life now. But the more that you're willing to open out and to explore and expand into, well, if it doesn't come from this lifetime and I can't quantify why I'm experiencing this depth of emotion, where does it come from?
Yeah.
Because we're being asked to look at our karma, which is our shadow, which and opening out. But it's being willing to open our eyes, open our minds, be open-minded, and look at what's really there. Whether it's good, whether it's bad, whether it's ugly, it's this search for the truth. And this to me is what it's all about. The search for truth through unconditional love without judgment is going to bring us to a place of total self-empowerment. And it's what is going to heal this world. So it's, be willing to ask questions. So many of us are like, oh, I don't believe in aliens, or I don't believe in angels, or no, I don't. But it's mostly out of fear that we don't want to go there.
Yes.
So it's be curious, open your eyes and look, open your mind and look, open your heart and look. Yes. And that is what's going to heal the world. If we can heal that fear within each of us, there'll be no need to defend. It will allow for us to all, so many of us are untrusting. I mean, how often do people get on the tube or whatever and they see someone, oh, that person looks a bit dodgy, I'm not going to sit next to them, or whatever. We're so untrusting of each other, but we're all part of this big human family. What to fear? We should be, obviously trusting God, but tie up your camel, have common sense, but it's time to really, and it's 12:12 as I'm saying this.
It's that is a massive piece. And when you're talking about the lack of trust, I'm so seeing that container within the base energy center that tries to keep us comfortable, tries to keep things logical so we know where we are, so we don't drift off too much. And being infinite beings, it keeps us kind of like contained in the finite, basically. And the perception that you're pointing towards is basically opening back out to really experience ourselves as infinite. And when we experience ourselves as infinite, anything's possible. So when you open your mind to anything being possible, it's basically blowing your own self away with what can come forward for you with regards to that. And so much of the wisdom of the third eye, so much of our intuitive center has been asking us politely, can you please open your, so it brings these, can you please just lower these boundaries and just open up. And I feel like now that voice is starting to get louder, as you say, as our own energy is rising, it's getting louder, that we open ourselves up to the fullness of who we are, basically.
Yeah, and the other thing is to be really feel your way forward and feel your way, because there's a lot of people that obviously there's so many healers and spiritual teachers and everyone's opening up, so it's really exciting because we've got this saturation of channels and healers and there's so much information, but it can be overwhelming at the same time. And the key thing for me to remember is that you are your own teacher, and it has to resonate with you. And also you can go into overwhelm with all the information that's available, and there are things that are coming into our awareness that can be a bit scary or a little bit unsettling. Amazing and miraculous, but the more light that you go into, the more the shadow reveals itself, so it's all balanced. So it's important also to know when to just come back to center, come back to the 3D, and you don't have to be open and really out there all the time. We are here to be human. We are here to have a divine human experience. We are creating heaven here on this earth plane. So I find that going out in nature and just being really grounded, being really present can help with all of that. I don't I love all the mindfulness techniques, and I love Eckhart Tolle's The Power of Now and all of that. But I think that we can't just only focus on the now moment all the time, because then there would be a part, we'd be then we wouldn't be willing to look at everything. And I believe that the power of now is in seeing that everything is happening now.
Yes.
Everything is going on now. So your past lives aren't in the past, and your inner child is still affecting you now. And the future is here now if you want to choose it to be. So I think that it's being in the now, yes, but being willing to look at all components. The shadow, the light, the dark, the yucky, the beautiful, and to know that it really is all beautiful. One of the things that I've experienced is that some of those really horrific situations that break you apart and have you on your knees and have you on the floor are actually the things that really make you, and they can bring you into this really raw place where beauty can begin to divulge itself in the form of, say, poetry, or it can bring you back to that simple moment of, smelling a rose, or a hug from a friend, or we're remembering simplicity, we're remembering community, and we're remembering that it's all part of that we have to learn first and foremost how to honor and take care of ourselves. And how better to do that than to absolutely know thyself.
Yes.
Know yourself inside out.
Yes.
Be your inner wise woman or your inner wise being by asking questions. Ask questions of your higher self. Ask to be guided. Feel your way through it. Don't leave any stone unturned. Be curious like a cat. And celebrate every part of you, because when we're ashamed of ourselves, or when we're afraid of ourselves, or what others think of us, we box ourselves in and we finish ourselves. And, we're here to be manifest beings of divine glory, so...
I absolutely adore that. That was absolutely, I can feel that ricocheting. Thank you so much, my love. That was amazing. I love these conversations with you, and I feel so high frequency right now. Thank you. Thank you for sharing your energy and your essence with us.
Thank you. It's so beautiful to talk to you, honey. Thank you so much. Amazing topic. And I just think it's wonderful that all of us are now opening up and having these conversations, and beautiful women like yourself creating platforms to have these discussions. So thank you for the amazing work that you are doing, my darling, and thank you for having me today.
If you've enjoyed this conversation and you'd like to go a bit deeper, then check out the Goddess Immersion that's going to be happening on the 1st of January. It will take you into all aspects of yourself as a woman and as a goddess, and it's, I think, the perfect present to give yourself for the new year. Perfect expansion present to give yourself for the new year. I hope to see you there.